Welcome to the show. It is your girl Sarah right here on Relax Radio. I'm super excited to be here. It is a beautiful Friday morning, and well, it is 6 a.m. So, like I said, I'm very excited to be here because we have a lot of interesting things to be talking about today. Okay, welcome to the show. Like I said, it's Friday, something that all of us can be excited about because the weekend is tomorrow. And like I said at the beginning of this week, I absolutely love Mondays because I can then start counting the days for the weekend, right? So that is what it is. And I'm very excited to be here and keep you company all the way until 9 a.m. I have a lot of interesting things to share with you. I have a lot of fun things to share with you as well. So make sure you stay tuned because it's an absolute pleasure to keep you company all the way until 9 a.m. Okay, so make sure you stay tuned. Now, before we get into our conversation, I want to very quickly remind you that you can be a part of the show. All you need to do is just text me on 078 the number that you can see on the banner right now, and you can be a part of the show. You can share your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions, your experiences, whatever it is that you want to share with us, you can do that. All you need to do is just text me on that number right there, okay? So make sure you do that because I really want you to be a part of this show. And also, we want to very quickly remind you that you can, in fact, follow us on our socials, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And when you follow us on our socials, you can actually be a part of our show. You can keep yourself informed, you can keep yourself engaged also. Or rather, you can engage with us, engage in our shows as well. So make sure you stay tuned, make sure you go follow our socials, and make sure you're updated on the very latest, okay? Because that's what we do right here at Relax Radio. It's all about the positives, no negatives, okay? So we would absolutely love to be here throughout your entire week. Make sure we give you the best of news, best of current affairs, and everything. And also to make sure that we spread positivity, especially in these difficult times. Okay. So I am very excited to be here because being here means that I can make your day so much better. Now, I also want to very quickly remind you that you can, in fact, go download our app, which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. And that means you can listen to us either from your iOS device or even your Apple Android device, and you can be a part of this show. So make sure you do that because, like I said, that will be absolutely amazing. That would definitely make you feel better. That would make your day get so much better as well. So make sure you do that, okay? But right now, let's actually get into the conversation. Now, today's conversation is about the zero waste movement, okay? Because there is what I would call a refillution, which is basically a refill revolution, okay? But make sure that you stay tuned into this conversation. Make sure you stay, you are a part of this conversation because, like I said, we do have a lot to talk about in this conversation. So make sure you do that because I have a lot of very interesting and fun things to share with you, especially. These days there is a lot of things to talk about as well. So make sure you do that. Right. But now let's actually get into this conversation. Now, today's conversation is about the zero waste movement, like I just mentioned, and I am going to be talking about why we need to make sure we try things or we do things that we where we can reduce our wastage, right? And I'm going to be talking about what exactly the zero waste movement is, what their aims are, and what sort of myths that are there about them, and why we need to dispel these myths to make sure that we all play our part in saving the environment, or making sure that the environment is protected. Okay, that is what we're going to be talking about. And in addition to that, we will also be talking about all the zero waste movements that are there in the United Kingdom and how it's actually helping a lot of people, especially people who are very conscious and they are very, or rather, they care about being sustainable. And we'll be talking about all of that. Okay, so make sure you stay tuned because it's definitely going to be very informative and it's definitely going to help you educate yourself a lot as well. So make sure you stay tuned. But right now, let's actually get into this conversation. Now, more stores than ever before are, in fact, doing their bit to cut the impact of shoppers on the environment. Now, whenever we go shopping, we carry so many different types of bags, we used to carry plastic bags, polythene bags, and especially after you get grocery, you tend to put all of your groceries in a plastic or in a polythene bag and then bring it all back home. But right now people are more conscious than ever before, so people are actually taking steps to make sure that they don't bring home polythene, or that they don't use polythene unnecessarily. Now what that means is a lot of people are taking reusable bags when they're going shopping, or they're taking their own bags when they're going shopping, to make sure that they have to make sure that what they're doing actually has a positive impact on the environment. And in a way that's really really good, because you're actually working towards making the environment a much better place. You're working towards making the environment greener, you're working towards making the environment much much more sustainable. And I think that is something that we can all definitely get behind. Okay, and then we obviously, if people are doing all of these things, if people are trying to take much more sustainable steps to protect the environment, then we all have this question, right? We have this question about whether reusing and refilling could actually be the answer to plastic pollution. And the thing is, refills actually make a lot of sense, because not only does taking your old detergent bottles back to a store to be replenished help reduce plastic weight, but it also cuts out unnecessary new bottles, and it makes it a lot cheaper too. So, in fact, if you think about it, that's actually a very cheaper and sustainable alternative. And I don't understand why a lot of people are not doing it. However, I have to agree, and I have to actually tell you that more people than before are in fact taking part in this refill revolution. They want to make sure that they play their part to save the planet, and they want to make sure that they're doing what they can do best to make sure that our planet is safe. Okay, now, the scale of plastic in the United Kingdom is actually quite huge, okay? Because in the United Kingdom, it's actually estimated that 5 million tons of plastic is used every year, and nearly half of that is packaging. So, if you use 5 million tons of plastic every year, that means half of the plastic that we use is in fact just packaging. So then we understand that when it comes to all the packaging that we use, if you want to reduce your plastic consumption, if you want to reduce the amount of plastic pollution that is there in the environment, then the way to go about it is actually to make sure that you don't get products that have a lot of plastic packaging. And in that instance is when you start to refill, because refilling is honestly such a fun thing to do. Okay, all you need to do is just collect all your glass bottles or whatever it is that you collect your stuff in, and go to the shop and refill it. And you don't have to pay for the bottle, obviously, because that bottle is yours, but you just need to pay for the refill. And I think that's the best way to actually save the planet. I think that's the best step that we can all take, because it's honestly so innovative, and it's crazy that we didn't really utilize on the fact that we could just refill stuff instead of packaging. Because honestly, if you think about it in the perspective of companies who produces goods as well, it actually saves them a lot of other costs as well. So if they have to spend money on packaging, if they're now going to provide refills, then that means they don't have to spend all that money on packaging, which is honestly something really great for the company, because it helps them reduce their costs as well. So, like I said, in the United Kingdom, they use nearly 5 million tons of plastic, and half of that tends to be the packaging that they use. Now, what's important to keep in mind is the fact that plastic waste actually does not decompose, right? More often, more often than not, plastic packaging does not actually decompose. And the thing is, we've heard of biodegradable plastic and whatnot, but it's still plastic, right? And I think the way to actually go about this, the way to reduce our pollution, is just to stop consuming plastic at all. It's just to stop consuming plastic, is to stop using plastic as a whole. There's no point in buying biodegradable plastic or whatnot. And I know plastic is much easier to use, it's convenient, and it has a lot of advantages. But while it has advantages, it also has a lot of disadvantages. So it's very important to keep that in mind. Now, like I said, plastic waste often does not actually decompose, and it can last for centuries in a landfill, or it could even end up as litter in the natural environment, which could actually pollute soils, rivers, oceans, and harm the creatures that inhabit them. Now, we've seen so many videos, we've seen so many documentaries out there as well, that where all these marine animals, they swallow plastic, and it really hurts them, especially if the plastic gets stuck in their gills. It gets very hard for them to breathe. Like, a lot of these marine animals actually die from suffocation. And it's sad, it's truly heartbreaking because we are the ones who are putting them in that position. And this is something we can change. So I think it's very important for us to be that change that we want to see in the world. Like Mahatma Gandhi once said, be the change you want to see in the world. Go make that change. Don't wait around for someone else to make that change. Because if you're going to wait around for someone else, then the change is definitely not going to happen, because we're all going to be waiting for someone else to make that change. So it's important that you be the change, that you make the change, and you do everything that is necessary to make sure that all the plastic out there is reduced as well. So like I said, it harms a lot of creatures. It definitely pollutes the environment as well. Now I know, when it comes to zero waste, it's very hard to think of your life, or think that you could live your life without polluting, without throwing away your trash rather. And it actually appears to be quite an impossible task, but that's not actually the case. You can actually live a zero waste life, because a lot of you would be surprised that there are actually people all over this country proving that this seemingly impractical way of life is actually possible. It looks impossible, but you don't know if you don't try, right? So you have got to try it out. I know it's hard to cut all of your wastage like immediately. It doesn't happen overnight. You need to take some time to do it. You need to make those certain adjustments as well, but what's important is that you start doing it now. By cutting out disposable packaging and making a commitment to actually making a commitment for reusable products, to use reusable products, and applying a bit of creativity, more and more people are actually joining this fight for a zero waste world. And I think that honestly made this entire week, because nothing pleases me more, nothing makes me more happier than people coming together in communities, with their friends, with their families. They all come together and they actually try to reduce the amount of plastic they use, or they try to reduce the amount of wastage that they give out to the environment, that they waste and whatnot. And honestly, that's like the best thing that you could ever hope for as well. So that's absolutely amazing. And honestly, I'm so excited for this kind of future. Now make sure you stay tuned, because after this break, actually, we will be talking about what exactly the zero waste movement is, what their purpose is, and all these different myths that are there about the zero waste movement. So make sure you stay tuned. But right now, we're actually going to head into a very, very small break.
Now, there's a lot of conversation around who pays more taxes, if it is the rich or if it is the poor, right? When you are basically going out and during a day, you go to a restaurant, you have to pay taxes there. If you buy a car, you have to pay taxes there. So why is it even a conversation that, the rich pay less taxes or the poor pay more taxes? Why is it a conversation like that?
Because it's true, the rich generally pay less tax. A rich person walks into a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's, they're not going to get a different bill than another person, right? They're still going to pay the same VAT on those goods, they're still going to pay the same thing. So that's all the same. However, the differences come in if you can pay yourself from your own company, you can structure it in a way that you pay less income tax through paying a bit of salary, paying dividends and so forth, and then also deferring income. Also, your pension payments or contributions can be different. So that increases your tax sort of gap, if you want to use it that way. Where a PAYE person just gets paid salary and bonus. And now those are the most highly taxed sources of income in the UK, definitely, in the UK. We've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? Because in a public company where the stock is traded openly on the stock exchange, the value of that stock is driven by supply and demand, it's driven by emotion, it's driven by news, it's driven by quite a lot of variables over and above the actual accounting or total net worth of that company. I mean, we've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing. Right? And the company may still have value. It may still be doing quite a good thing.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts, mainly one because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. I mean, that's very important, right? Because you want cars, yeah.
Very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on air, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh, so that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
Welcome back to the show. It is the girl Sarah right here on Relax Radio. And like I said, I'm so excited to be here on this Friday morning. It's still, somewhere past a few minutes past 6 o'clock, actually, early in the morning. And I'm super, super excited to be here because we have a lot of fun and interesting things to be talking about. Okay. So make sure you stay tuned, but also make sure you go follow our socials, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And also don't forget to download our app, which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. You can listen in from anywhere in the world at any time of the day from either your Android device or even your iOS device as well. So make sure you stay tuned, okay? And also, if you want to be a part of the show, if you want to share your thoughts, your ideas, your experiences, make sure you do that because you can just text me on 07852473473 and you can in fact be a part of this show. So make sure you do that. Make sure you get texting, make sure you get calling because I would absolutely love to hear from you and I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts and your experiences as well. But right now, let's actually get back into this conversation that we were having about what exactly is the zero waste movement. Now, to put it simply, the zero waste movement is basically a lifestyle where people aim to eliminate their trash output completely. Okay. What that means is you just want to completely cut out the fact that you have any trash at all. And that means no plastic, no wrappers, no garbage, no nothing. Okay. It's basically nothing at all. And this actually feels like a very unrealistic thing. It seems like a very unrealistic task as well in today's very disposable society because every day people all over the country, but rather, all people all over the country are in fact showing that it can be done. And I think that's just, motivation enough for the fact that we ourselves can be a part of the zero waste movement. We ourselves can in fact contribute to the zero waste movement. Okay. So it's amazing that a lot of people are in fact trying as much as they can to help the planet, trying to make sure that they can help the planet to become more green and whatnot. So obviously that is absolutely amazing and it's really, really good news as well. So like I said, it seems unrealistic, but by re-evaluating rather the way that we approach the concept of trash, these leaders of the zero waste movement are teaching the world that we all have the ability to make that difference in protecting our environment because we need to do our task. We need to play our part, especially when it comes to the trash that we the trash that we put out to society. Okay, we definitely need to play our part because we all live in the environment. It's not just a certain group of people. It's not just people who are vegan or people who are a part of the zero waste movement. We are all a part of this planet, so we all have to make that contribution. We all have to make sure we play our part to make sure that our planet is safe, to make sure that our planet is protected as well. So it's very, very important that we make that effort and we make that contribution as well to make sure that the planet is a much better place. Now, to get back into this conversation, about zero waste movement, we also, when we're talking about the zero waste movement, another question that we all have is what exactly is the purpose of the zero waste movement? Now, that's not a difficult question. It's definitely not a tough question because I can definitely answer that question for you. Now, a lot of the waste that we throw out on a daily basis actually ends up in landfills. So, to put it very simply, landfills are basically giant holes in the ground where waste is buried and then covered with soil or even an alternative material. The problem, though, with landfills is that it's absolutely horrible for the environment, and I will get into that. But it's very, very important for us to understand that just because we have garbage, just because we contribute to the amount of trash that is collected on the planet, that doesn't mean that the best way to get rid of the trash is just to go and store it somewhere else, right? Because what's the point? Then you're not getting rid of it anyway. You're just piling up garbage and you're just going and storing it somewhere else. So you're actually not making any of that change. You're not making any of that. You're not making the decision to reduce the amount you waste, to reduce the amount you consume as well. So the problem, like I said, with landfills is that it's absolutely terrible for the environment. Now, as a leading producer of methane, actually, landfills contaminate soil and they even emit harmful greenhouse gases that contribute to global warming. So, we all know the problem of global warming. We all know that there is a climate crisis happening right now. And we know that what has contributed to this climate crisis is, in fact, the global warming, is the greenhouse gases that are released, and all these other poisonous gases that have been released by humans because of our production activities, because of everything that we do. So, when you go and store garbage in those landfills, what basically happens is that these landfills actually emit greenhouse gases, because all the garbage that you store in there produces methane gas. And when that happens, you're contributing directly to global warming and you're contributing to the climate change of this planet. So, by refusing to produce any waste, the zero waste movement actually hopes to minimize the harmful effects of landfills on our planet. And that is what the purpose of the zero waste movement is. And I know, it sounds so very simple, because that the whole goal is to actually make sure that they minimize the harmful effects that are caused to the planet because of landfills, because of all the trash and the way we store our trash. And the thing is, even though it is simple, or even though it sounds simple, it's really not. There is so much more behind it. There's so much more behind the scenes sort of work that goes behind or rather the work that goes behind the scenes, because of how much of pollution that is there around the world, because of how much pollution that is there not only here in the United Kingdom, but in the entire world as well. And what you need to keep in mind is that a lot of these countries, a lot of rich countries actually have the capability, they have the ability to make that change. And they can actually invest in something that is much greener. They can invest in something that's much more sustainable. But the thing is, they're not. So that is the question, or that is the biggest problem. When you have the capacity, when you have the ability to invest in things that are much more greener, that are much more sustainable, why aren't we doing it? Why is it so hard for you to make that change? Why is it so hard for you to reduce the amount of trash you put out into the environment? And I think it mostly comes down to profit. It mostly comes down to convenience, right? Because, like I said, the world we live in right now, it's so competitive. It's all about capitalism. It's all about who makes the most amount of money. And in that race, no one actually wants to spend a significant amount of money on making sure that they use sustainable alternative solutions to the way we dispose our garbage, to the way we use certain products, right? And the thing is, they have enough money to actually make that effort. It's just they don't want to make that effort because it can be costly for them. But what we need to understand, or what we need to keep in mind, is the fact that if you can, even though it costs a large amount at the beginning, even though the initial cost is significantly large, that means in the future it will actually have much more benefit, right? Because it is costly at the moment, but that doesn't mean that in the future it's going to get even more costly, right? Once you invest in something and it keeps having, better, or rather it produces greater results, it yields greater results for the environment, for everyone in that company, for all the people in the world, then that is nothing to be upset about. That then you don't have to regret the fact that you spend so much of money. But that is what is currently happening. Not a lot of these companies want to spend that money. They don't want to make that change because it is costly for them, right? So that is why it's so hard to that's why it's so hard to be a part of the zero waste movement. Because while our individual selves, while our communities themselves are making that effort, it doesn't mean that it just stops from there. It needs to move on to all these corporations, it needs to move on to all the people who are in charge of us. They need to make that effort to make sure our planet is much safer, and also to make sure that our planet is much more sustainable as well. So, how exactly do people live the zero waste lifestyle? Because, like I said, it just sounds easy, but how exactly do you live a life like that? Now, anyone who's living with a zero waste lifestyle will actually say that it's all about beginning with small life changes. And I think that's what life is about, right? Because no matter what you do, you need to start with small steps. You have to take those small steps and then make it bigger. So, that is what it is with the zero waste lifestyle as well. You need to start making those small changes, and then eventually they will become bigger changes when everyone around you, all your friends, your community, is impacted by it in a positive way. Now, when you're doing a lot of things, especially in terms of consumption, in terms of what you buy, in terms of what you consume, there are different things you can do as well. So for example, when you buy things secondhand, or you use reusable containers, and you compost food scraps, anyone can actually significantly reduce the amount of trash that they produce on a daily basis. And when you reduce that trash that you produce on a daily basis, that is definitely going to be helpful for the environment, because it's not going to end up in that landfill that contributes to the climate crisis, that contributes to global warming. And I think that's honestly the best way to go about it. Because when you start composting at home, right? For example, my best friend, they have huge compost bins in her garden, and what they do is all of their waste, they compost it, and they actually use it for plants, and they use it for every other, things that they do in their garden. And that's absolutely amazing, because they do have a beautiful garden, and they have a lot of fruits and vegetables, and that just goes to show that the nutrients, that we throw, especially things like banana peels, have a lot of nutrients. So things like that, when you compost them and you reuse them for to grow your plants, it definitely helps it to retain much more nutrients. Now, for example, if you didn't know, even eggshells have a lot of calcium. So when you crush those eggshells and you put it around plants, it actually helps those plants have calcium. It helps those plants absorb calcium as well, which is absolutely amazing. And if you think about it, our environment is made in a way that we don't have to waste stuff. Everything actually has an importance, everything has an advantage. So why don't we start using it for ourselves? Just make sure that we benefit ourselves from all the advantages that exist because of from all of the ingredients that we use as well. Now, if you aren't too sure about all of this, if you aren't too sure about this lifestyle, if you're figuring out what exactly you need to do, there are in fact many zero waste blogs out there on the internet, like Going Zero Waste or Trash is for Tossers, that actually share a lot of helpful tips on small changes that can be made to decrease waste. So make sure you go check them out, because it's definitely going to help you understand, and it's definitely going to help you make that change in your lifestyle as well. So make sure you do that. But right now, let's actually head into a small break. But make sure you stay tuned, because after that, I will be back to talk to you about all the misconceptions that are there, especially in terms of especially in terms of the zero waste movement. So make sure you do that. But right now, let's head into a small break.
one of the easiest ways to increase your net worth is to ensure that you have higher cash flows. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to not buy things on hire purchase, not buy things over months and months because you can't afford them now, but you want it. It's kind of that delayed gratification. Rather than buy that couch, that car, that stereo, that computer, whatever item, and pay it off over 12, 24, 36 months at an interest rate, rather invest that money, make do with what you've got, and then after 12, 24, 36 months, take the money that you've now invested and buy that good. An asset could be anything that appreciates or reduces a tax bill. So it could still be a liability, but it reduces their tax bill. And I'm not going to go into the technicalities because that's out of our remit here. However, for our use or our purpose, what we are talking for the listeners here is I would put this definition of an asset forward. An asset is anything that increases your income. Anything.
Now, there's a lot of conversation around who pays more taxes, if it is the rich or if it is the poor, right? When you are basically going out and during a day, if you go to a restaurant, you have to pay taxes there. If you buy a car, you have to pay taxes there. So why is it even a conversation that, the rich pay less taxes or the poor pay more taxes? Why is it a conversation like that?
Because it's true, the rich generally pay less tax. A rich person walks into a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's, they're not going to get a different bill than another person, right? They're still going to pay the same VAT on those goods. They're still going to pay the same thing. So that's all the same. However, the differences come in if you can pay yourself from your own company, you can structure it in a way that you pay less income tax through paying a bit of salary, paying dividends, and so forth, and then also deferring income. Also, your pension payments or contributions can be different. So that increases your tax sort of gap, if you want to use it that way. Where a PAYE person just gets paid salary and bonus. And now those are the most highly taxed sources of income in the UK, definitely, in the UK.
Again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, how much has changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Well, you didn't do very well. And they get upset, And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young. Well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, I'd say to me, you had one to forget.
That's it. Your dad sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
He'd say to me, you had one to forget. Get over it. And that was it. So I'd dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. You know how much a lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Welcome back to the show. It is your girl Sarah right here on Relax Radio. Super excited to be here because we have a lot of interesting things coming your way. And I also have a lot of good facts and information for you about sustainability, about, being a part of the zero waste movement, something that we all need to pay attention to, something that we all play a huge role in. Okay. So make sure you stay tuned because I'll be sharing all of that and so much more with you right here on Relax Radio, where it's all about the positives and absolutely no negatives. Okay, so make sure you stay tuned because in tough times like this, we definitely need all those positives. We definitely need all the positive energy, the good vibes, the good energy to make sure that we get through these difficult situations. And that's what I will do for you right here on Relax Radio. So make sure you stay tuned. Okay, but I also want to share a lot of other topics that will help you stay informed, that will help you be aware about everything that is going on, not only here in the United Kingdom, but also all around the world as well. So make sure you stay tuned because it's absolutely amazing to learn and to know about these different things that happen all over the world. Okay, so make sure you stay tuned. And the best way to stay tuned is actually by downloading our app, which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, which means that you can listen in from either your Android device or even your iOS device. And make sure to download or, make sure to follow us on our socials as well, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And that way you can be a part of the show. You can tune in whenever you want and you can always join the conversation. And make sure to share your thoughts, your opinions with me on 078 because I would absolutely love to hear everything that you have to share with me as well. Okay, so make sure you do that. But right now, let's get back into the conversation we were having, which was basically about the zero waste movement. So, what we're going to be talking about right now is actually these misconceptions that are there about the zero waste movement. Now, large companies, actually, a lot of these large companies that are very profit oriented, they claim to have a zero waste to landfill approach where they use methods like incineration to actually avoid sending their waste to landfills. But the truth is, that's exactly not how it works, okay? Zero waste means there is no waste. It doesn't mean that you burn it, and it doesn't mean that you go and put it in the landfill, because that is not what zero waste is. Especially if you're incinerating your garbage, that is also detrimental to the environment, again, because you're burning it, right? So there's a lot of harmful gases that are released to the environment as well, and that also affects the climate of this planet, right? It results in global warming as well. So like I said, these big companies actually claim to have a zero waste to landfill approach, but certain environmental organizations actually claim that this is a misuse of the phrase zero waste, because the true aim of zero waste is not just to keep waste out of landfills, but rather to redesign our entire cycle of resource extraction, consumption, and even discard management, so that no resources are actually wasted at any point along the way. Now that is what the zero waste movement is actually about. It's about no waste. It's not about having waste and then burning it to not have any waste, but rather it's about changing that whole structure. You have to make changes from the grassroots level itself to make it to become zero waste, to make your company zero waste as well. So that is what That is what that is a common misconception rather that exists when it comes to zero waste. Now, going zero waste is obviously a very large and demanding task, right? Now, if you want to help keep trash out of landfills but you aren't also in the position to commit entirely to zero waste, then that's okay. What you can keep in mind, or what you can be, happy about, is the fact that there are still so many other things that you can do. You can still contribute to reducing your waste, because you can minimize the problem by actually doing things like using reusable water bottles, or you donate your clothes instead of throwing them out, because every small step counts. Okay, so make sure you make those tiny, or you take those tiny steps to for the betterment of this entire planet, because even though those might be tiny steps for you, it's definitely big steps when you're talking, or when you're looking at it in the perspective of this entire planet. Okay, so make sure you do that. Now, there's actually this product called eCover, or this brand called eCover, which happens to be one of the largest producers of ecological washing and cleansing products in Europe. Now they actually first launched refills at the UK health stores in the early 1990s, and the option right now is available at 679 independent shops. So this is actually because a lot of customers are in fact very keen to see a broader range of products, and they were actually quite happy that they were able to do their bit for the planet, for the environment, to make sure it's much more sustainable and it is much more greener. Now, ever since Blue Planet 2 actually aired, and it drew attention to the impact of plastic waste on our oceans, eCov actually has seen a huge increase in people asking where they can refill, and this was actually said by Tom Doman, who is eCov's global head of long-term innovation. Now, it's quite obvious that encouraging people to reuse and refill is in fact one of the most effective ways we can tackle the plastic pollution. Right, the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. But this time you have to switch it around and reuse and refill instead, because that is definitely going to help the planet. That is definitely going to play its part when helping the planet, and it's going to help a lot of other people as well. So make sure you do that next time you're buying something. Next time you think you want an additional packet of something, no, stop yourself from doing that. Go get a refill, because that is definitely going to make it so much better. And believe me, I've been in this position before. Sometimes when you do things that are good for the planet, when you take those small steps, it makes you feel so good about yourself. Like, you finally feel like you're contributing to the planet. You finally feel like you're doing something for the planet, and that feeling is absolutely amazing. So that is definitely a feeling that you all should experience as well. So make sure you do that, because it's definitely going to help you feel so much better about yourself. Okay, now that is why we need to keep encouraging people. Sometimes, especially sometimes when it comes to our parents, they're not very keen on adopting or rather making changes to the ways in which they go about with their day-to-day tasks, right? A lot of our parents don't want to change their ways, but if you yourself start making those changes, then your parents will eventually start making them as well, right? So make sure you actually don't burn your garbage or anything. Just get a compost bin and put it in a compost bin, and then you can use it for your plants. There's so many different things. Make sure you use cloth bags that are reusable. Make sure you use reusable bottles. Try to take those bottles everywhere that you go, and especially say you're going to a carnival or something. You know how we stop from all the vendors that are there and we buy different things. Well, just take your own box, your own lunch box and your own cutlery, because that way you can just ask them to put it into your box and you can eat it, and you can even, like, if there's any left over, you can take that home as well, right? So make sure you do that, because that way you're also contributing to a much more sustainable and greener planet, and you're reducing your waste, the waste, or how much you dispose to the environment as well. So make sure you do that. Now, right now is actually the proper time, or the correct time, to drive a refill revolution in the United Kingdom, because we all want to help change the face of basically, when you step into supermarkets, it's just so much of plastic, right? So obviously, we all want to make that change. We all want to see refills instead of plastic packaging, because By that, we're actually challenging the single-use plastic packaging and our disposable culture. And there is, in fact, this new in-store refill system that will make refilling more convenient for shopkeepers and customers, and it also sets a new standard in the market. And what's important is that if you want to drive real change, we have to make refill much more widely available for everybody. Okay, it just can't be a certain group of shops in a certain locality. It has to be all over the country, and in fact it has to be ubiquitous, so you have to definitely make sure that you can find it all over the country and not just in one part of the country, because we want to make sure that everyone starts refilling. Right now, a lot of small independent stores actually remain the natural home of refill stations, because that's the kind of policy they have, right? They don't necessarily use plastic packaging, and even if that was the case, a lot of these small stores actually tend to be more sustainable. Their whole theme is about being sustainable, being eco-friendly. It's about making sure that they do what is best for the planet. So in terms of things like that, there's absolutely a lot of change happening, and that's also something that we need to applaud and commend as well, because it's good to see this kind of change. It's good to see that at least some people are taking that time, taking the time to make that change. Now, these refill stations actually first appeared in one of Planet Organics London stores in 2015. Now, this was actually said by Al Overton, who happens to be the buying director, and he said that even back then it was a part of a progression. They had been using compostable food to go containers in their cafes for many years, but obviously they had removed plastic bags as early as 2009, and they've always tried to sell much of their fruit and their vegetable loose. Okay, so because of that, when this whole thing came along, it was actually very helpful for them. It definitely helped them a lot as well, because a lot of people right now, a lot of people nowadays are in fact much more concerned about the environment. They care about the environment, so they always want to go that extra mile. They want to go that additional step to make sure that they're playing their part to help the environment, to produce the environment as well. So because customers are in fact looking to reduce their environmental impact, and they think that the amount of plastic waste that can generate or that we generate has income become very visual, because even though we can't see all the carbon emissions, we can definitely see an overflowing bin of single use packaging, right? So we obviously know that regardless of the fact that we can't see our carbon emissions, we will definitely see that huge bin of plastic that is there in our house. And that will consciously tell us, look, you need to you need to reduce your consumption of plastic. You definitely need to make that change, because it's important not just for you, but for your children, people in the future. It's important for them as well, because it's our planet. We have to save it. We have to play our part to save it, right? So make sure you do that. But right now, let's actually head into a small break, because I have a lot more left to actually talk to you about the planet, about being eco-friendly and the zero waste movement. But right now, we're going to head into a small break.
And climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It will make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you'll interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there, you're quite right.
I mean, I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
Welcome back to the show. It is your girl Sarah right here on Relax Radio. I'm very, very excited to be here because we're talking about the zero waste movement. We're talking about a refill revolution, and we're talking about being a part of this conversation that is very, very important if we are to move forward and if we are going to go forward and make, or rather take, those important steps that we need to take to make sure our planet is much greener and to make sure our planet is a much better place to live in a few more years' time. Okay. So that's what we're talking about, the zero waste movement. If you want to join the conversation live here, you can do that because all you need to do is just text me on 07852473473, and that way you can actually be a part of the show. You can be a part of this conversation as well, because I would absolutely love to share your thoughts and opinions with everyone who is listening in as well. So make sure you do that. Make sure you join the conversation live here, and also make sure you follow us on our socials, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Okay, go follow our social media platforms because you're going to find a lot of interesting content out there, and you're going to find a lot of informative content out there as well. Okay, and it's going to be really fun, so make sure you go follow us. And also want to very quickly remind you that you can download our app, which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. Go download it and listen to it from anywhere in the world, any device that you want, anywhere in the world, at any time of the day. Okay, so make sure you do that. Now, let's get back into our conversation about the zero waste movement. Let's get back into our conversation about why the zero waste movement is, in fact, very, very important. Now, Emily Byron, who's actually a regular customer at Planet Organics Muswell Hill store, says that nothing at this point of time should be single use. Okay. And I agree with her. Nothing should be single use right now because we know how much we've already polluted this planet. We know how much of danger there is for this planet, but we still keep producing single use plastics and we still keep using it as well. Right? I mean, look, they wouldn't keep supplying it if we didn't keep demand it. So obviously, if we didn't keep demanding for it, right? So obviously, we also play a part, and that's why we need to reduce our demand, or we need to reduce the amount we consume these single-use plastics. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that right now we're very informed and we're educated, and every company out there, in fact, owes it to the future of the planet to be looking at the ways in which they can go about reducing their consumption of single use plastics. Okay. Now, the trick actually is to get into the habit of putting the empty bottles in the reusable bags. And that's quite easy, right? Because you take these reusable bags to the shops. All you need to do is just take all those empty bottles that you have and put it in the reusable bag. So when you're going to the shop, when you pick up that bag, you would already have everything you need, and then you have nothing to worry about. And if you're concerned about whether refilling can be messy, if you're concerned about, whether it'll get tough or complex, well, don't worry. My 10-year-old brother actually is quite good at refilling stuff, and even though you think it's difficult, it's actually not. Come on, refilling actually isn't that hard, right? You just need to open it and fill it up, and then you're done. It's actually not as complicated that as you think it is. So refilling is not hard, it's not complex. You just need to start doing it. Now, the Real Food Company, which is again another family-run health food shop in Alsager, actually opened in 1990 and was quick to pioneer the refills of shampoos and conditioners. And those are other refills that you can use as well, right? When we're talking about refills, it doesn't always have to be just food refills. There are a lot of shampoo and conditioner refills out there as well. And the co founder, Carol Dines, actually said that they started as soon as they became available. So, very clearly, even back then, there was this opportunity to save on loads of new packaging coming into the environment. And they have happen to have customers who are still refilling the original bottles from 20 years ago. I mean, come on, wouldn't you find it very fascinating? Wouldn't you find it very cool to say, hey, I have been refilling the shampoo bottle for 20 years? Like, that means you have done your part to save the planet. You have saved up so much of money, you have saved up so much of plastic, and you have reduced your trash as well. And that's something to be proud of, because honestly, I would definitely love to say, "Oh, hey, I've been filling this same shampoo bottle for 20 years now." Pretty cool, right? Because I find it cool too. And a designer and upcycler called McMurdo actually said that he had concerns rather about the endless consumption of human beings. Okay, and the mix of less packaging and eco-friendly product is in fact a very perfect match. Now, McMurdo, who lives on a houseboat at the Priory Marina in Bedford, believes that this whole perception of refilling has in fact changed right now. So back then, refilling used to be like a middle class thing to do, but now it's in fact quite cheaper to buy your products without all of that packaging. And guess what, I feel like it's something trending as well. I mean, the reason a lot of people jump on these things and actually start doing these things is when it starts trending, right? So make it trending, make it something interesting, make people want to recycle, make people want to refill their bottles, refill their shampoos, whatever it is. Make people want to refill, and that way you can actually have a cheap alternative that helps you with saving money and saving the planet as well. And McMurdo also said that this is in fact a generational thing, because the younger generation will actually look at a plastic container and question why it exists, which is honestly fantastic, because back then you'd never question as to why a plastic container exists, right? And we definitely need the change in mindset to make the whole refill revolution happen. Okay, we need to change that mindset that taking empty refill bottles to the shops is in fact second nature, and it's completely okay. I think it's a bit like, bags for life, really. Like, that's what it is. Now, when this first started out, we were constantly walking into supermarkets, and we were leaving these things in the boot of the car, or wherever we were going. We actually didn't, it wasn't always there in our heads. Like, we would have so many other things running in our minds, so we wouldn't actually think about it. But right now, more people are getting used to it. It's more of a habit, right? So when you get used to it, and you remember that you need to take all of those bottles when you're going to the supermarket, then that's going to definitely help you buy products that are less costly, in terms of how much money you spend, and also less costly in terms of the environment. It's about this change of habit more than anything else. At the beginning, when you started, it's in fact a bit of a hassle. It's a bit of a struggle. You lose your bottles, or you forget about it, and it's a bit of a struggle. But if you constantly keep doing it, you can actually buy a lot of things without packaging. If you constantly keep reminding yourself that it's important for you to invest in this, then you'll definitely end up buying a lot of other things as well. So make sure you stay tuned, because that is the end of the conversation about the refill revolution. But also, don't forget that you have to still play your part to continue refilling. Okay, you have to still play your part for the environment. You have to make those changes that you have to do, obviously, because that is going to help save the planet, that is going to help save the environment as well. So make sure you do that, because you're going to be so happy about the fact that you made that change. Okay, but right now I actually am going to end this, because I'll be back in a few more minutes to actually talk to you about why the age of casual hugging could be over. Yeah, I know it's very interesting topic, right? Especially something to talk about in the middle of a pandemic. But make sure you stay tuned, because I'll be back in a few more minutes.